Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. And today we are here with another edition of the PWCC Weekly Review, where I go through the top 100 soccer card items that ended on PWCC over the last week. We talk about them, give my thoughts. You guys also, can give your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and get on into it. We start off with the 1979 crack Maradona in an SGC1. Pretty low grade, third year of the same sort of disc cutout for Maradona that you see in his rookie, going for $100 there. I mean, honestly, would seem kind of strong considering what we'll see here in a second. There is another rookie of his that sold very cheap, I would say, at least comparatively. Here we have a 1954 Puskás in a set that has a few different black and white photos of him in action mostly. We also have a 1982 Maradona. Pretty nice sticker, but not too crazy rare. Going for $100, not too bad at all. The row above that, we have a nice looking Eusebio from 1969 and a PSA 7, which would seem like a pretty solid grade there. Pop 1 of 1, not higher. A Saka auto from 2022 Leaf. We also then have an Adrenaline Kylian Mbappe, which I thought would be fun to look at because honestly, I don't really follow Kylian Mbappe rookies too much outside of, maybe some of the numbered, some of the, sticker rookies. This one though, up a little bit actually, I think. Yeah, so we have some different sales here. Realistically, around the same price, I guess I would say 105, 105, 120, 120. Before that, there were some low ones, but relatively speaking, seems to be pretty solid and yeah, nice and steady for that one. Here we have a 1950 Piola going for 105 next to a Vinicius out of 99 Topps Chrome. I thought this was a decent sale. I mean, it's PSA 10, but it's an out of 99 Vinny, which second year isn't anything too crazy, I would say. So going for 100 is fun to see. PSA 7, Lionel Messi World Cup card from 2006, first World Cup, going for 110. Those have come back down more to earth, but still holding a decent price point, I would say, because we'll see here in a second. There's a PSA 8 Ronaldo that actually went for basically the same price, which kind of shows you where they are at this point. That used to be, pretty similar. Now you can get a whole grade better of the Ronaldo instead of the Messi. We have that next to a Netfinders out of 199 PSA 9. There's a ton of little inserts here and there in the 2014 set, so you can find ones that you like. Personally, I think the Netfinders look good in terms of typically they have nice photos and whatnot, but obviously, again, there's so much to look through with 2014 Prism. You kind of gotta pick and choose your spots, really. Whoever sold this, feel bad for them. I don't know why Jason Kidd Auto has found its way into the soccer section, but mistakes do happen every now and then. Don't know if that's a deal or not, but found that funny to see. Row above that, nothing too crazy, I would say. 2018 Kevin De Bruyne auto sticker. We also have one of the, I guess I would say, more common, least desirable Pele's, 1971 Barrett & Co. PSA 8 grabbing 115 there. Next to that, we have a 2020 Rose Lavelle. I won't really talk too much on the women's side of things because I don't know too much about it, so it would sort of be out of my ballpark there. Skip through these two. We have a Speckle Refractor Holland PSA 10 going for 120 second year. Again, not a bad price, it wouldn't seem. I mean, PSA 10 obviously is going to pull the premium for that. Here we have a 2006 Tyrion Reed PSA 10. I thought this would be a fun one to look up just because, to try to see how that set's doing in terms of if people are actually collecting it. So we have a PSA 9 recently went for 22. PSA 10's going for, about 120. So a nice solid increase there. There were some deals to be had. I guess back here there was like a very poorly listed one on eBay. I can't seem to find it right now, or maybe that's it. Nah, there it is. Maybe from that bottom sale up a little over 2.5, but that could just be a very poor listing and sort of the result of that. A Pedri Red Prism out of $399 with the RC logo going for 126 in a PSA 10. That's where you start to lose me for sure, is once we start getting into the multiple hundreds for a numbered card. Even we were kind of pushing it with how many parallels we had before, but that's a bit preposterous, especially when you consider how many are in the set. Rivaldo auto going for 126 in a PSA 10. That is a 2020 auto. Decent price for a sticker. Here we have a 2018 Edson Alvarez rookie out of 65 going for 126 PSA 10. Pop 1 of 1 it says. I'm going to trust that that's true. I do not know. If you're a Mexican fan, seems like a pretty cool card to have. This was a reference to the pretty low Maradona, I would say, just relatively speaking, when I compare it to something like this Pele that's, relatively obscure, that doesn't matter too much. And, I get where the theory comes from with that, because honestly, this is sort of lineage compared to, the crack caricature, which doesn't have the same lineage since that's the third year of the true rookie Pog. So SGC1 going for 126, pretty low. We'll also see another, I guess, relatively low sale, but there was actually a pretty low sale on eBay too, so not great all around, I would say. Here we have a 1958 Bobby Charlton Vending Series. This one is, I guess, not the most rare, not the most common, not the most sought after, but certainly one of the Bobby Charlton rookies in a PSA 6 going for 125. We have an Otto Harder going for 126 in a PSA 4. Found that kind of weird. We saw the PSA 3 of this same one go for almost 200 or maybe a little over a week or two back. So, that just sort of shows what happens when there's not many buyers in a market. Even if you set the standard with a PSA 3 at 200 and then you go to sell the 4 thinking you're going to get, okay, 200 plus some premium, maybe 400. No, you get 126. It doesn't appear like there were a ton of buyers, hunting PWCC every week for these. 2016 Select Green Ronaldo die cut. Wanted to see how this did just because I kind of like this. And, it's jersey match. This initially was, Ronaldo Euro winning year, which was kind of cool considering, Messi had never won an international cup, but all of that has been laid to rest. Nonetheless, 130 on that one. Last one was 150 and got as high at the peak of, 250, 300. So not a crazy dip, considering what many other things have seen, but holding relatively strong, I would say. 1950 Duncan Edwards right there going for 144. Above that, we have a 1920 Spanish release going for 144 as well. A Buffon going for 150 along with a couple Vinicius here. Press Proof Silvers going for 150 there in a 10 and 156 there in a 10. So Vinny still doing pretty well, of course, given sort of his spotlight at the moment. Makes sense. This Paul Scholes, I'm guessing, was probably, in that big lot we had seen a few weeks back where there was just a ton of these 2003 Upper Deck Manchester United cards going to auction. And I'm guessing whoever bought that then sort of pieced up different ones that they wanted to sell individually. So 150 for that seems pretty good. I remember those lots not really doing that much. They obviously did over 150, but they didn't pull a massive premium the way I was thinking they would. So I'm guessing whoever did that probably had a pretty good play there. This is a relatively common 2005 Lionel Messi, I would say. You can still find boxes of this semi-easy in a PSA 9 going for 150. Row above that, we have a Ronaldo from the same set in a 10 going for, $15 more than Messi, just saying. Granted, that's a later year Ronaldo than a lesser year Messi, so maybe take that into account. 2002 Iniesta PSA 7 going for 170. Felt pretty light, so I wanted to look that up just to see where it's been. And I sorted it by highest price, so that's why we are where we are here. But as you can see, there was a time where a PSA 8 was selling for $1,300. This is the lowest ever sale for a PSA 7, and the lowest price ever was a 5 at $52 and also a 6 at $100. So it seems relatively in line, I guess, when you take the lowest sales ever. But I guess that speaks a bit more to where we are at the moment. We have a Mia Hamm here in a PSA 8 going for 168. Feels kind of light just from what I've seen in general from the Mia Hamms, but, nothing that I'm all into the weeds too much, I'll be honest. Zidane right there going for 174, so a decent jump over the Thierry Henry at 120 there in the same grade. We have a 1970 Pele. This could be, it says Postcard Series 2 in a PSA 4, so would seem to be a postcard. I haven't seen the back. Yeah, very much so. 1970 has some World Cup vibes there, so pretty cool, I would say. Very nice looking. I'm not a huge postcard guy, but if I can find cheap ones on eBay that I like that look cool, I could see it. We have an Andrea Pirlo PSA 9, 1997, going for almost 200 there. Want to take a peek at that as well. This one going for 180. The last one in a PSA 10 went for 720, and then the PSA 9 before that, 200, 160, 180. So seems to be about right in line for that there. I do believe that that's not technically the rookie, but it is the first Panini Calciatore, so it really depends on what you're looking for there. Then we have a 1/1 Daniel James next to a PSA 9 Karim Benzema. I thought this was a pretty strong sale. These go for pretty cheap raw, but it's not easy to get a PSA 9, of course. I know there's like English backs. I don't know of this specific year if there is, but generally speaking, I know that is a possibility with WCCF. That is not the case here. So just a nice grade. Benzema, true rookie, going for 200 there. Next to a Roberto Carlos out of 10 from National Treasures, going for 200 right there. Not too bad at all. We have another Rose Lavelle next to a Messi PSA 8. So we saw the Ronaldo earlier went for, 125-ish. This goes for almost 200. So Messi Premium is staying true to that. PSA 2 Vanderhoop going for 200. That feels like a very fair price, I guess I would say. And one that's been holding pretty steady. It seems like at this point the Vanderhout Croix seem to linger between $100 to $200 in the PSA 1 to 2 range. Above that, we have a 1981 Ryan card in a PSA 6. Wanted to check out this one just to see how it's been doing. Did I check it out? I did not. Okay, well, never mind. I didn't do it. Anyway, that's about the same price it's been going for, so I do remember taking a look at it. I thought it actually seemed like a pretty reasonable price when you consider what his second year stuff goes for. But maybe that's just people not really knowing or not caring. I don't know. Next to that, another 1958 Bobby Charlton. This one is the Chick's Portrait in Action. You sort of get like almost the dual sticker with two different pictures of him. So I think it looks really good. Not that rare by any means. I've seen a good amount of these auctioned. PSA 9, not easy, but 210 right there, decent price. Next to a Erling Haaland foosball. I want to take a peek at this as we just saw a second ago. So this actually down a little bit from, I guess, the semi run-up that it had recently up to 280, and now it's come back down to 215. All in all, yeah, plus 2% in the last 3 months, 6 months actually. Nothing too crazy to be seen there, and Haaland is, keeping on in terms of what we'd expect from him, so I guess to not see too much of an increase is a little lackluster, but it is what it is. 2017 Select Checkerboard Messi going for 222 in a PSA 10. Not a very important card, I would say, but, people like PSA 10s, they like Messi, they like colors, so you throw all that together, you get yourself a fairly decent card. 2010 Kevin De Bruyne in action shot, $220 for BGS 9. This is pretty low, so I did want to take a peek at it. If we look backwards, basically I'm looking at 9s. The last PSA 9 went for $430 4 months ago. The last BGS 9 went for $400 almost a year ago, and before that it only gets more expensive. So not ideal. Kevin De Bruyne also, I guess in terms of fanfare and how much the footballing collecting world talks about him, doesn't really get a lot of love at this point, kind of overshined by Haaland, right? Last year, whenever Man City was doing anything, the talk was Kevin De Bruyne. Now that talk has been moved. So also, no real showing in the World Cup, not much of a bump to be had. Pedri Orange Bubbles in a PSA 10 going for $250. We get a nice appearance from Landon Donovan here for the USMNT contingent. This goes for $264. From what I found, this is basically the most rare of the Landon Donovan rookies. I have a PSA 8 that I bought for like $50-$60 last year, and so I looked at this and I was like, pop one of 3. I might give it a shot. So I was ready to go up to like 100-ish, maybe a little bit more. It goes for $250, so I was pretty impressed with that. Honestly, just figured on PWCC this type of item would just sort of fly under the radar. Not the case apparently. So goodbye there by whoever got it. $264. I guess feels strong inherently given what I paid for the 6, but obviously very rare, and so hard to really price point that, especially. PSA 1 Maradona Estampas going for $300 there. Doesn't really look that great. You can kind of tell something's going on with the arm there, so down a little bit compared to where those have been, but also not a great looking copy. There is a better copy that we'll see in a second. We have a PSA 10 Harry Kane Landmarks going for $312 there. Above that, we have a Martinelli Rookie Prism from 2021. PSA 10 Auto going for $312. Next to that, we have a pretty nice looking Phil Foden from the 2019 Prism set. Out of 35 teal. Looks really nice in terms of, where that stacks in Phil Foden cards. I'm not really sure, but it feels like it would be a pretty decent one. A 1966 Crack Pele Figuritas Campeon. Haven't really seen this that much, at least looking through the auctions, and the pop would sort of justify that. Pop 1 of 7, just one graded higher. Would seem relatively rare. I mean, if 7 1s have been graded and there's not anything higher, nonetheless, looks really nice. I do love the appeal and the vintage look of that, surely. Then we have a Ronaldo Leaf Auto going for $348. Again, these Leaf Autos are very, very cheap. So, just remember that. At least in terms of sticker autos, a lot of people like to buy prospect sticker autos. I mean, if Ronaldo sticker autos are going for $350, what's your prospect sticker auto worth, Maybe if it's on a rookie card, maybe if it's in a special set, I get it. But in terms of how much those people can sign going forward, they could put Ronaldo to shame if they wanted. So just something to think about. Next to that, 2022 Lionel Messi Silver Prism. So this is one that I thought would be fun to look at. When we look back at past sales here, this one was for $360. The last one that we can find was $750 on eBay. The last one before that was $1,100 apparently. So that would seem like a massive drop-off. I will say people on PWCC probably aren't as inclined to look for something like this. At least, the more commonly traded cards, you would probably go to find that on eBay since that's where the quantity is. So maybe there was an opportunity there to buy here, sell elsewhere. But I have been seeing people. There was someone in a Discord I'm in that was trying to sell one for like 500, and they were using the $1,000 comps to try to justify their 500, even though I think there was even other ones lower than the 600-700 we saw on Card Ladder. I think there have been lower ones. I don't know why they're not on there. So realistically, I think this is probably at like 400 to 500, but even, even at that high, it's still crazy, I think. I mean, there's tons of silver prisms. These are going to get graded for a while, right? I know this is a special World Cup for Messi, but there's tons of parallels, tons of things to chase. So, who's going out right after this one? I don't know. Then we have a 2021 Gabriel Martinelli Blue Ice. Always sort of love the Blue Ice, the cracked ice designs on cards, so I think it's a really good looking one. PSA 10 out of 75 going for 360. Seems relatively fair. I don't know the market too much, but at least from what I see on here in terms of Martinelli, doesn't seem too out of line. 1992 Ryan Giggs Stadium Club going for 360 and a PSA 10. Not too bad of a price there. We see a few odd and end Ryan Giggs sell every now and then. Next to that, a Carlos Valderrama from 1988, The Sun, Pocketbook of Soccer, PSA Pop, 1 of 2, 1 higher, going for 360. And then we have a Sicker Verlag Pele from the, I believe it's the same set as the Moeller and Beckenbauer rookies, going for 360 and a PSA 6. Seems like a fair price, at least in terms of Pele items. Being able to get Pele in a set that could be semi-prominent seems to be a good play, especially in relatively mid to high grade. This row, nothing too crazy that I am itching to get on into. Obviously, people always love the Genesis Ronaldos, or I guess just Genesis in general, so people are going to fawn over that. An early Garrincha, maybe you could say rookie. I probably wouldn't. And then you have a 1954 German Classic. Above that, a 2017 Ronaldo Acetate Patch, jersey number 7 out of 7. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say that this is not associated. I guess I'd be impressed if it's player worn at this point, right? That's kind of where we're at. Player worn. Hey, there you go. I think that's good. I think that's good for Ronaldo, Not exactly what I'd be looking for, but, at least in this day and age, it doesn't feel too bad. Here's a better version of the Estampas, at least PWCC claims so. They said that this is top 30% going for 456. The other one went for a little over 300. I'd agree. I mean, the other one had a huge issue there on the sleeve, and I do think this looks better. It kind of tells you how bad these typically look if this is a top 30%. Just judging it from that photo right there, most people would probably say that doesn't look very good. But for the Estampas, that's actually quite nice. Next to that, we have a 2008 Panini Extra Class set, Robert Lewandowski PSA 9. We'll see what that's been going for. So 480 on this sale. Last sale before that was 456. 411. You have some portraits there. The portraits are the more rare version and the more sought after. And so yeah, I guess at least during this year, it would seem like the Robert Lewandowski sort of leveled out. It did come down from December of last year, where it was at 600 to 700, but it seems like the 400 to 500 range, it's been pretty solid at least so far this year. We have an Obsidian Black Color Blast Lionel Messi and a PSA 9 going for 500. Pretty decent price there, especially considering, I'm sure the PSA 10 probably goes for 1,000, 1,500, somewhere in that range. An SGC1 Maradona Crack, the portrait shot going for 500. This actually feels kind of strong just because on eBay at the same time there was a PSA 1 that was a little off center top to bottom, but generally I thought looked better. That went for like 350, so maybe that was a deal. This is a little bit higher. Nonetheless, I do feel like these types of stickers, they're almost back to where they were pre-boom, and so at those sorts of prices, and especially when you compare them to, I know that, people can find them in booklets, and so they're going to come to market, and so over time, of course, that will happen, but when you compare that to most all, modern players and what some of their more common cards go for, it kind of puts everything else to shame. Didn't even notice this, though. We actually have an SGC 7 of the Crack, third year Maradona going for 528. That just kind of threw me for a loop because as we started here, the one at the beginning down here, if it's going to load there, that went for 100. So to say that the 7 only went for 5 times the price, I know it seems weird to say only 5 times the price, but typically 7s absolutely dwarf 1s, and so initially, I kind of thought that SGC 1 at the beginning might have been an overpay. Maybe this was just an extreme underpay and someone got a massive deal. I do not know, but that's something that kind of threw me off there. 1965 Crack Galazzo Alfredo Di Stefano. Thought this looked really good. Looks like a classic Topps type of card. I don't know if this is technically or anything like that, but I know that I've seen, at least in the vintage Discord, where there were like Topps like sets, maybe partially influenced by Topps. or even maybe just owned by Topps. I'm not sure if that's one of them, but that's exactly what it makes me think of. 2020 Merlin Red Refractor, Kylian Mbappe going for 550. I think that's a little light because we saw one of these go recently in an auction. Don't know if it was the same one, but nonetheless, really good looking card. I do like the Merlin Chrome, at least how it looks. Price point for what you're buying, that's all, a whole different debate. I'm not really sure I can throw my opinion on. Next to that, we have a Matchbook Pele going for 576. Not my sort of thing, but if you're into it, I like... It really depends on where you want to draw the line with collecting, or if you even want to draw a line. But it's really hard to collect without having lines drawn, because then you just really have no guidelines. So everyone's got to pick and choose that, of course, on their own. 2004 Paxio Portugal Cristiano Ronaldo in a PSA 9. I thought this was a pretty good sale. I mean, I know that this is sort of like the cool Ronaldo sticker from 2004. This is the more rare, the commonly off-centered, and so. People do sell it on that and build up why it's cool, and I agree with it, but 600 for, I guess, what is a third-year Ronaldo sticker, it's still a pretty good price, I would say, especially in this sort of market. I mean, next to it, we're going to see the second-year Panini Pele going for near the same price and a pretty good grade, and we'll see something that I actually lost and bid on. If you guys watched a few episodes back, I got a decent grade, I would say, Bergman of the Jared Muller 1965 rookie, and so I was very happy with that. And I saw this, and I was like, oh, if the stars align, maybe I will go for it. And I tried. With a couple hours left, it actually was only at like 200, and so I was like, maybe I'll give it a shot. This is a pop 1 of 2, just 2 graded higher. The TTT set is, at least it appears, less common than the Bergman set. However, it's also, I guess, less desirable and less iconic set, so you sort of have that going against it. But I do think that these action shots, there's this one, and then there's a Beckenbauer one, they look immaculate, especially for like a striker like Muller right here. You get him in action with the ball right there. I mean, just looks beautiful. I was ready to go to like 450, 500. There was a PSA 7 that sold like 4 months back for 1,300. So I was trying to stay around, half of that, maybe a little below. This goes for 720, so pretty decent price, but congrats to the buyer. I think it's a beautiful sticker there, especially when in comparison to the next two. Here we have a 1965 Jared Muller rookie PSA 7. So 1 grade less on this, but also, more rare in that grade. This is pop 1 of 2, 2 higher. This is a pop 1 of 3, 3 higher. I just don't like these as much. I'm not as much of a fan. I really, really like that, but it's sort of weird to see, I guess, Beckenbauer and Muller doing so close in terms of prices. This is pop 1 of 2, 3 graded higher. It is a PSA 6, that's a 7, but would have thought that Beckenbauer would have commanded a bit of a premium. Very nice looking Calcio Campione Pele with a blank back, apparently. PSA 1 going for 930 does look really, really good. I mean, this is one of those things where it's really nice to be a soccer collector at times, because there's some damage on the back, I'm guessing. I don't really see it, but I'm guessing there is. And just because of that, you can have what is a mighty fine looking Pele for what would be a bargain price. Now, obviously 930 is nothing to scoff at, but I'm guessing comparatively to potentially high grades, that's a bargain. Next, we have a 2006 Messi PSA 10. This is actually graded a long time ago in the 20 million cert range from PSA, so that's impressive. We'll look at that. PSA 10 right here, down a lot from the last sale. The last sale was in 1995. This sale basically cuts it in half, but over the last 6 months, only down 5%. So as you can see, seems to be bouncing around a lot. Where it lands, who knows? PSA 9 at the moment is a 185 and has been doing the same. Not as much, crazy bouncing, but still relatively in line. Then we have Maradona going for almost 1,200 in PSA 8 from his first World Cup. With Maradona, there's always sort of the question of like, well, do you want the first World Cup or do you want the second World Cup? Because really, the second World Cup's where it all went down. Personally, I think I'd just rather have both. Then we have the 1982 Maradona Panini sticker in a PSA 8 going for 1,200. The question, I guess, would always be, do you want the 82 or the 86 when it comes to Maradona? Personally, I prefer both, I guess. Looking at past sales, seems to be performing, I guess, relatively well. Last 7 went for 450, so a good premium over that. However, the last PSA 8 went in December for 1,400, so a decent drop from there, 200 to 300. We then have a Ronaldo sticker auto in a PSA 8 going for 1,200. Doesn't seem like too bad of a price. You could get one of these or like 3 to 4 Leafs for that price. I don't know what to make of that, but I'll just keep scrolling. 1963 Pele Imperia Calcio going for 1,200 in a PSA 5. Top 104, just one graded higher. Seems to be a mighty fine grade, but it is graded relatively recent. What I always say is, you know, look at the cert number. If it was graded in the last 5 to 10 million, obviously people are still sending those in. You do have to deal with that with a lot of soccer, though, because, you know, we're still in this discovery phase, and soccer obviously has a very long lineage spanning the world. So it's going to take a while to, you know, find your way through all that. Next to that, we have an Aquarella Pele and a PSA 2 going for $1,500. A depressed price, I guess, to where it was in the past, but, you know, still sort of recalibrating to the market, I think. This is a fun one in a not fun way, I guess, but an SGC 6 Bergman. I thought that this would be, you know, probably a really significant piece, and it should have been. $2,100, pretty decent price, just pop 1-1-2 graded higher with SGC. Problem being, and you probably already know since I'm hovering over it and looking at the back, when you look at the back, typically you don't want to see any of the color from all the text being lost. Sometimes it happens in particular areas, but typically you can compare and see if that's common. This is not at all common, where you're just almost missing the entire number itself and having a lot of breaks in the text throughout the back of the card. So this is one that most people would probably guess to have been stuck and just removed very, very well. Gets a 6, gets a very good price, I would say. Probably not deserving of what it should have been, but comparatively to, I guess, what it should have been in terms of the card, it does way higher than it should have. $2,100 there, though, a mighty fine price for a more than likely stuck sticker. And that sort of breaks us into the top 10. So we have 3 more right here. This is a row of a couple, actually, a few Ronaldos. So we have 2 Ronaldo Mega Cracks from 2002, a PSA 6 going for $2,300, and a BGS 7 going for $2,150. Between these two, you know, I think it makes sense where they both are. BGS seems to be basically discounted a grade. Personally, I typically prefer BGS as long as I, you know, look at it myself and trust the card that is not trimmed or doesn't have all the, you know, worries that people have with BGS. Mighty fine prices there. When we look at the PSA 6 Ronaldo, since that's going to give us more points on the graph, at least in the last year, down 36%. But I guess from this low point here in December or November, not really down too much. So it seems to be moderately leveling out, but still going down a good bit, so we'll see where that lands. PSA 6 not all that common. I mean, 47 is the highest, or I guess second highest of the Ronaldo grades, but as you can tell, seems to be on the higher end of the bell curve there, since that seems to be taking place right between these two. In the middle, smack dab between them, we do have the R9 Mundo Deportivo. This is one that, you know, I've been kind of weary of just because you see a lot of these come out. It's also hand cut, so there's always that thing of people regrading, cutting them, and what are you going to do? And so hand cut doesn't seem to, you know, have the same sort of love as a regular distributed type of sticker would. This seems like a very far drop. I'm not going to look at the PSA 7 sales in the past, because we've seen enough of these at this point. There's about one of them that sells every week or every other week. And typically from what I've seen, the 5s go for, you know, 1,000 to 1,200, maybe 900, so near 1,000. And so a 7 going for 2K seems pretty light, especially when I remember, you know, a few weeks back, there was a PSA 8 that was the top of the auction sheet that sold for 10,000. So if a PSA 8 selling for 10, seems pretty crazy that a 7 would sell for 2, especially again when they're hand cut. So, you know, the change between each grade isn't that extreme, or at least I wouldn't think so, since you have, you know, some control of that yourself. And so, yeah, feels really light. But again, R9 is sort of one of those guys that has a lot of different rookies, and for some reason he's sort of been an exception to the rule. Like Maradona has a lot of rookies, and people sort of, you know, discount that heavily for that reason. Same thing with Cruyff to an extent. Same thing with a lot of these legends, but R9, people don't seem to care. I guess it's probably because it's a more, you know, modern figure that has some more love from collectors, and so more people are going to be able to see past that. But it is something to consider. Then above that, I did not actually bet on this. This is, well, I did, obviously. 1958 Titulares Pele 2.5. I went through the auction block really early. It was sitting at $5, and I bid it up to 6 so that I could be the leader. Felt pretty good at the time. Obviously didn't end up winning. So I do really like the Titulares. I think that the vertical one looks better, and if I was to go for one, I would prefer that. But this one also looks really, really nice. PSA 2.5, also PWCC Eye Appeal designation. Going for $3,300. Feels about right in line. Typically, the stock ones, PSA 1 to 2, go for 1,000, 2,000. Once you sort of break out of the stock, then you get up to the 3,000, 5,000 range. So it seems to be about where they've been. I know that, I don't know if it's this one, but I know the vertical one has variations, so that's obviously something to look out for as well. This one, I mean, very high price. Obviously, this is sort of an ode to the LeBron RPA Exquisite, and this is an Alex Morgan one, so it looks really cool. Not a rookie, but, I'm guessing when it comes to women's soccer, there's not a ton of, like, high-end product releases, so I would imagine that this is one of the ones that people fawn over and one of the best players ever for America. So you add that all together, very, very cool to see there, out of 99, going for a very solid price, and only a PSA 8 too, which I was not expecting. Then we have a 1958 Edizione Vav figuring Calcio Brazil, Pele and Vava. This is sort of a dual one of the two, an SGC 4 going for 5,000. Didn't take too much of a peek at this, just because there aren't honestly a lot of sales for this sticker in particular. Relatively rare, but it's one of those where, maybe it's more rare, but do you really care to have, two people on a sticker of a legend? Most people don't. Personally, I think it looks really cool, very unique, but at the same time, obviously a pretty good price point for that at 5,000 almost. And then we break into the top three. So here we have a 1963 Eusebio Panini Calciatore yellow name. So I don't know what the back is. I think the back matters too. I think there's like yellow name Velita, yellow name regular. Given the PSA pop 1 of 2, none higher, I do know that the yellow is more rare than the blue, so that's going to be what people are going to want to go after. Also in high grade, as you can tell, not all that common, so 6,000 coming in for that. Seems more than deserved, but again, this is one of the scenarios where that was graded very recently, 71 million. It's always sort of a reason for caution, I guess, in that regard, but still a very, very nice sticker and a very good price to match it. And then finally, we end off with two of, I guess, what was the hobby's favorites at some point or another. The 71 BIS still is. PSA 8 going for 6,900. Looking at the graph here, we can see that recently it's been very steady, I would say, since February. 6,600, 6,900, 68, 72, 69. So seems to be about right in lockstep with where they've been lately. From the bottom during the World Cup, 4,700 for Messi, obviously then goes on to win it, which changes the trajectory of his legacy. Very minorly, of course, but there is, the Ronaldo speed bump that I think he's basically passed at this point. And the price still seems to be holding pretty strong for what is a pop 97 in a PSA 8. Then finally, we have the 1958-59 Quigol Tupanamba. This is one that used to be the hobby darling in terms of Pele rookies, but then basically at one point it was seen as 58. Now I think it's seen as 59 or even 60. So by, moving it back a year or two, obviously that's going to impact how it's seen very heavily. So 6,900 right there for a pop 1 of 1, just too higher. As far as where that compares in the past sales, we can see that PSA 4s in the past have done 21,000, 29,000, and 19,000. So very, very high. Now maybe you could say this is more of a PSA 3 grade. Maybe that's true. Those have done, at least in the past, very recent, 8,000, 87, 75, and then coming down from the highs of almost 25,000. So really, no matter how you look at that, that is getting absolutely murdered. PSA 3s were 25,000 at one point. PSA 4s were 29,000, maybe even higher, theoretically at times. So absolutely murdered in terms of price there. But again, really sort of makes sense, and given the holistic market sort of outlook, obviously when you add that in, it's not going to look very good. But still some very cool cards, obviously some very historic ones as well, which is nice to see. Typically, the top of this list is maybe an out of 50 Haaland, a low number Vinicius, a low number Mbappe. So to have Pele, Messi, Eusebio, another Pele, Alex Morgan, R9, Ronaldo. This felt a lot better, I would say, at least in terms of that. So yeah, I mean, the high end of the auction was topped off by Legends, which I do like to see, and the low end of the auction was actually pretty low again. At least the first 2 months we did this, typically the lowest prices on the top 100 were like $200, $300. Now it's 100. So I don't think that that's the floor being cut out. I think that's just not as many good cards being sold. And we've sort of seen that. I mean, typically every single week we were seeing like 5 Messi rookies, right? I don't even know, besides 71 BIS, I don't think we saw a Messi rookie. No, we didn't see any of the, Mega Cracks team sets, the S-Day stickers, the Money Chrome. We didn't see any of it. So, yeah, seems to sort of be, I guess, a nice place as far as where we're at. or maybe a bad place that people just don't want to sell. But even for that messy stuff, you know, it's still pretty up, I would say, generally speaking. So sort of weird to, I guess, see where we are at this point, but I am enjoying it. I hope you are too. But yeah, that'll be it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Again, anything you'd like to tell me, either an item that you thought sold high or low, or maybe you bought one yourself, would love to hear in a comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.